you're here. Thank you for joining us. Due to the popular demand, I will be sharing with you another chapter of the lore. It seems only fitting that we begin this week where we ended off last week. So we're in the mid 400s of the Third Age. Marcus Madden has been crowned king, but at his coronation was killed by his uncle, Lord Tinius. This became known as the Crown of Blood and Snow. So, fleeing the scene, Tinius escapes into his secret fortress in the mountains, the Era mountain range, secret fortress called Violet Hill. There he is, all of his loyal usurpers go with him. And meanwhile, at Snowdon Castle, the mantle of the crown falls upon Marcus's daughter, Bronway. So, Bronway, who is pretty young at the time, 18 at the time, so she's not quite, no one was expecting her to have to rule at this time, but she takes the crown, she takes up the fight, and rallies her troops and heads down to Violet Hill to avenge the death of her father. So we're gonna do two things. First, I'm gonna. There's a short little sort of poem composed by her about going to Violet Hill, which I'll share with you guys, and then we'll move on into a few years down the line where there is a more notable battle. So first, let's talk about Violet Hill. It was a long and dark Empyrean when I took my host to Violet Hill. There was snow, white snow. Clearly I remember from the embankments they were watching while we froze down below. Like a forgotten cathedral, the jagged walls of Violet Hill were silent still. Hidden in the stone fortress was a lord who thought himself become God. Should we break apart upon the evil lair like a sinking ship upon rocks? I only hoped I would be buried in my armor. The attack on Violet Hill was unsuccessful, but Bronway survived and retreated with what remained of her host, and thus the Winter Wars began. Civil war in the Kingdom of Snowdon lasts from 430 Third Age into 460 Third Age. So, battles are fought throughout, but the next kind of big battle is there's lots of big battles, but the next one that I have written down is called Svika's Conquest, and it takes place in 447 of the Third Age, so 17 years after the outbreak of the Civil War, and this happens in a village called Samstown, which is in the north of Snowdon, like near the northern coast, and then sort of west as well. At this point in time, Lord Tinius' followers have taken to calling him the Winter King. He believes himself the rightful king of these lands. Lord Brendan Sampson arrived at the southern gate of his earldom to see what the cause for disturbance was. Normally, a visitor to Samstown wouldn't warrant an appearance from Sampson, but this was an uneasy time of war. Sir Caraid pointed out into the distance. Sampson squinted his eyes against the wind and snow, and then he saw him. A lone figure walked towards the town, his thick cloak billowing behind him. Sir Caraid, go and wake your unit, commanded Lord Sampson, but return in haste. Yes, my lord. Caraid ran off to do as he was instructed. Sampson walked out in front of the gate to meet the stranger, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword, at the ready to draw. Who goes there? I am the master of your sires, boy. The stranger removed the hood of his cloak, revealing himself to be Tinius Snow. Lord Sampson was shocked. Tinius was now in his 4th and 80th year, yet the years of war seemed to have aged him not. Though his beard was white and his skin was void of color, His scars had been smoothed over, and his blue eyes pierced those that met them. Indeed, in more than one way, he seemed in greater health than he had at the crown of blood and snow. "Lord Tinius," said Samson, "have you come to surrender?" "Nay," replied Tinius, "I've come to accept yours." Samson scoffed. "Then you've come in vain. Not even the Winter King can defeat the might of Samstown on his own. Have you lost your army?" The corners of Tinius's lips curved into a crooked smile. "My power has evolved since I last saw you, Brandon." At this moment, Tinius withdrew Svikia from its sheath, and it seemed to Samson that the black blade of the dwarvish sword seeped what little warmth he felt, and what little daylight there was drifted behind shadow. Tinius's eyes glowed in the darkness when he spoke next. "This is Svikia, the gift of Volorn. My father wielded it in the Dark War. This blade won the Lost Tuor. I have unlocked its true nature." The Winter King strode towards Samson. The young lord raised his own blade to deflect the blow from Svikia, but to his surprise, when the two blades came into contact, Samson's was shattered. Svikia continued on its trajectory, and the Winter King cut it deep into the flesh of Samson's leg, bringing him down to one knee. To Samson's relief, help arrived. Sir Karaid rushed out to meet the Winter King in battle, along with 10 soldiers. They surrounded Tinius, all armed with swords, save for Karaid, who preferred the might of a mace. The Winter King laughed and twirled his cloak, which seemed to engulf the soldiers in a black smog. When the blackness dissipated, 3 of Karaid's men were slain. Karaid and those remaining lunged at the Winter King, but in a clash of metal, 4 more soldiers fell, their bodies frozen to the core. Svikia was thrust into the air, and it seemed to those who looked on that the snowy air swirled around it. When he swung it down, 2 more soldiers were killed, having been pierced by many icicles. With another mighty swing, the Winter King split Karaid's last man head to toe down the middle. Laughing maniacally at his own victory, the Winter King was unsuspecting that one of his fallen adversaries might still be a threat. So it was that Lord Samson was able to leap onto the Winter King's back and thrust the broken hilt of his sword into his enemy's shoulder. The Winter King stumbled, and Karaid swung his mace with all his might into the side of the Winter King's head. The evil lord fell to the ground, but he was not yet dead. With another strong gust of snowy wind, the Winter King vanished from sight. So again, that passage comes from The Winter Wars, A Cold History, the document, the book that chronicled the Winter Wars, written by Herman Frost in 505 of the Third Age. So, I hope you guys like that little passage. More to come.